This is the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. Now, what book is this? What is it all about? South Africa is a constitutional democracy, and since it's a constitutional democracy, this book right here reigns supreme. Anything or any law that is against it, it is invalid. Now, I keep hearing people loosely talking about freedom of expression. When a person bullies another person or say something that is borderline discriminatory or derogatory or even borderline crime and injuria, they still say, well, I have a right to freedom of expression. You're right, you do have freedom of expression. However, according to the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, Section 16. But before we get to Section 16, let's go to Section 1 of the Constitution so we all know what this book is all about. It is supremacy of the Constitution. This is Section 2, which says, this Constitution is the supreme law of the Republic. Law or conduct, operative word here, conduct in this conversation, inconsistent with it is invalid, and the obligation imposed by it must be fulfilled. Now, when we come onto social media, any social media platform, we conduct ourselves in a certain way. And this constitution says law or conduct that seems to deviate from the constitution, it is invalid. All right. Now, let's go to Section 16 of the Constitution, which says freedom of expression right here, right? It says subsection 1, Section 16, subsection 1, everyone has the right to freedom of expression, which includes A, freedom of the press and other media. That means you, other media, that means you as a YouTuber, a TikToker, Instagrammer, Snapchatter, Facebooker, etc., and so on. All right. B, freedom to receive or impart information or ideas, which TikTok and other social media platform, their purpose is to do exactly that. C, freedom of artistic creativity. People come onto TikTok and other platforms to express their creativity. D, academic freedom and freedom of scientific research. Some of us, we do scientific research on the things that we see on social media, and we have that right. But Section 16 also limits itself. Subsection 2, which says the right in subsection 1 does not extend to, all right, it does not extend to A, propaganda for war, B, incitement of imminent violence. I see that a lot on TikTok. And C, advocacy of hatred that is based on race, ethnicity, gender, or religion, and that constitutes incitement to cause harm. So I see a lot of people will call other people names and say, no, I'm just expressing myself. That could be propagating for incitement of of imminent violence. I've seen people, when a gay person expresses themselves on the platform, and then you have comments that says nina ndingubulawa. That is incitement for violence, and it's against the Constitution. And secondly, that is a threat. In South Africa, when you intimidate a person, that is against the law. That means you could go to jail. All right. Now, let's go to Section 9 of the Constitution so you understand what are our fundamental constitutional rights as South African citizens and everyone else that is under the South African sun. Equality clause. Section 9, subsection 1 says everyone is equal before the law and has the right to equal protection and benefit of the law. 2, equality includes the full and equal enjoyment of all rights and freedoms to promote the achievement of equality, legislative and other measures designed. To protect or advance persons or categories of persons, disadvantage by unfair discrimination may be taken. 3. The state may not unfairly discriminate directly or indirectly against anyone on one or more grounds, including race, gender, sex, pregnancy, marital status, ethnic or social origin, color, sexual orientation, age, disability, religion, conscious belief, culture, language, and birth. All right. No person may unfairly discriminate directly or indirectly against anyone on one or more grounds in terms of subsection 3. National legislation may be enacted to prevent or prohibit unfair discrimination. Discrimination on one or more of the grounds listed in subsection 3 is unfair unless it is established that the discrimination is fair. You need to understand that we all have fundamental human rights and constitutional rights, but they're also very much limited by the Constitution. So let's see which ones that are limited by the Constitution. We already know that your freedom of expression is limited as well. The limitation of rights, all right? This is section 36, subsection 1. The rights in the Bill of Rights may be limited only in terms of law of general application to the extent that the limitation is reasonable and justifiable in an open and democratic society based on human dignity, equality, and freedom, taking into account all relevant factors, including the nature of the right, B, the importance of the purpose of the limitation, C, the nature and extent of the limitation, D, the relation between the limitation and its purpose, and E, less restrictive means to achieve the purpose. Subsection 2, except as provided in subsection 1 or in any other provisions of the Constitution, no law may limit any right entrenched in the Bill of Rights. Meaning section 9 of the Constitution, you remember those list of rights? They are not subject to section 36 of the Constitution. So the point that I'm trying to make here, in 2025, when you want to express yourself freely, understand this, that the moment when a person says, I don't like you calling me this, stop it. Because they do have the right to approach, number one, a police station, open a case of crime and injuria, which, by the way, when you are found guilty, the sentence is 2 years as well as a fine. Now, in South Africa, a fine can range between 50,000 rand all the way to 250,000 rand. Sometimes it's going to be both a fine and a prison sentence, right? So you spend 2 years in prison, plus you still have to pay the 250,000 rand fine, all right? So be careful of that. A person does have that right. The moment they feel triggered by a name or a term that you've called them and they ask you to stop calling them that, but you continuously doing so because you believe you have freedom of expression. Now you know that freedom of expression limits itself and is quite specific, all right? So the point that I'm trying to make here, there will be a lot of people that are going to mislead you into believing that you have a right to express yourself in this way because themselves, they may be that person or that category of persons. All right. Be careful. If you don't like somebody or you don't like their content or the person themselves that they are, keep it moving. Just keep scrolling because you do not want to find yourself, especially when you are unemployed and also employed, because when you have a criminal record, you become very much unemployable in South Africa. Unemployable. And if you are a content creator, there is no brand that is going to associate its brand with you when you have a criminal record, especially one that discriminates against another person. And then if you are working and then you are kantolo, and then subsequently you get found guilty, obviously you lost that job. And then when you come back, you are unemployable because now you have a criminal record. Think for yourself. Don't now rely on people simply because you are working, putting food on the table, and you have children to feed, and then you rely on people defending you and say, hey, kota unengane. Why don't you think about them? The moment you are busy typing, stop and think about your children, and think about your bread, and think about the future and your dreams, and then delete it if you feel like what I am saying, it is borderline bullying, borderline discriminatory, borderline derogatory. Delete it and save your job. Save the bread of your children. Freedom of expression is not that free. That's all I'm saying to you. Happy New Year.